with Amplify and Concentrate. Berserkers harness Rage and Shoulder Slam, while Priests stand firm against Darkness with Sacred Ground and Retribution. Now, soon an alternative which will exist for each of these abilities. Take a look at the currently planned additions below. Players will be able to unlock all of these new abilities at level 30. So to unlock an ability will require skill points. However, changing an ability out will require 100 star seeds. So I'm not entirely sure what exactly that means. So like, are you gonna swap out your passive B moves? You're gonna get rid of amplifying and whatnot. You know, you're gonna get rid of shield throw, and you're gonna have to spend extra skill points, or changing out an ability for 100 star seeds. Is that how it's gonna work? And do you buy it already? And then you can just swap back and forth with 100 star seeds the second you spend all your skill points. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but the next, so the Berserker passive is gonna be the new skills is Bloodthirst. So you consume all fury to restore HP and pull all nearby enemies into the Berserker's range. The amount of HP restored increases dependent on how much fury is consumed. Now the second passive is Short Dash, which will quickly move over a short distance. You become immune to most attacks for a short period during this movement. So these are the skills. Now the new passives for the Berserker is called True Berserker. Using the Rage ability, while it is already in effect, will restore 50% of your max fury in exchange for 20% of your current HP. Shoulder Slam now stuns enemies for a short duration. Now it also comes with Endless Thirst. Increase the amount of HP restored by Bloodthirst. Fury may not be generated for a short time after using Bloodthirst. Another passive is Prepare Attack. Using Short Dash with more than 40 Fury consumes 40 Fury to increase the Berserker's attack power by 15% for a short time. Those are the Berserker passives. Now, for the Crusader, the new skills are Judgment of Heretics. Slowly consume your belief to increase attack damage. This effect lasts until your belief is expended. Now, another new skill is Piercing Shield. You throw a shield that damages all enemies in its path, traveling up to 15 meters. I personally think this is going to be really good for PvP, but that's just my opinion. Now, the new passives for the Crusader is going to be Iron Skin. Using guard blocks attacks from all directions. Now, that is actually pretty clutch, seeing as being a Crusader, you're pretty much vulnerable from behind, and no matter what you do, you're always going to be vulnerable to a lot of different enemy attacks. For example, like, you know, boss fights where they attack you, and there's different directions, versus also PvP if someone attacks you from the behind. Now, using Iron Skin will be able to block attacks from all directions. That's my assumption. The next passive is Splinter Shield. If shield throw hits an enemy, it explodes into shards and damages nearby enemies as well. I honestly think that's pretty clutch, especially since you sometimes you can only use, like, let's say a debuff on one enemy, and then you can hit multiple with that. The next passive is Brave Judge. While in the Judge of Heretic state, it has a chance of recovering HP, and movement speed is also increased. The last passive is Awareness. It increases damage for Piercing Shield. Additionally, dealing damage to enemies with Piercing Shield reduces the shield cooldown by each enemy hit. Now the next class is the Mage. So the skills for the Mage is actually pretty interesting. So you get this thing called Frost Armor. It ignores damage from enemy attacks by covering yourself in ice. And during this time, you cannot move or attack. So it's kind of like what you see when you fight the Stone Wyvern, when he just kind of basically covers himself in just granite, and you can't basically, well, technically you can't hurt him. You know, he has like a shield, and you can't hurt him until you break the shield. But something similar to that, but except with frost. Mana Explosion. Consume all mana crystals to severely damage the enemy. The damage is increased based on the amount of consumed crystals. I kind of feel like that's already what happens with Crescent Moon when you consume all the manas, but like the mana crystals. But maybe this is just like a higher grade than that. New passive is Time Distortion. Reduce cooldown time and fortify application effects for 2.5% of each consumed mana crystal. The other passive is Overwhelming Power. Concentrate increases movement speed when the total amount of crystals reaches 10. All crystals are immediately consumed to recover mana for a short period of time. Frost Breath. That's the next passive. Using Frost Armor consumes all mana crystals and recovers HP based on the amount consumed. And the last passive is Energy Absorption. Each use of Mana Explosion restores a specific amount of max mana for each mana crystal consumed. So that's pretty interesting. Now for the Priest, the new skills that you get are Weakening Earth, which is to corrupt the earth and damage enemies within the area for 20 seconds. Okay, so it's kind of like the Judgment Circle. And Heavenly Wings. Damage nearby enemies with that then teleport 10 meters backwards. Alright, so they made a stationary character a bit more mobile, which is pretty cool. The new passives are Extending Earth. Maximum Sacred Ground effect area increases from 10 meters to 15 extra meters. Cursed Power. Cursed targets within Weakening Earth's area of effect, increasing their received damage by 10%. Wing Shock reduces Heavenly Wings' holy energy cost by 20%, and affected enemies are stunned for 2 seconds. Nice. And last passive is Chain Reaction. The maximum number of enemies damaged by the Retribution is increased from 3 to 4. So that's basically sums up the Priest. Now for the Ranger, the new skills is called Extended Claws. Kicks enemies up to 3 times. The final attack performs a knockback. Okay, I kind of want to see that. I want to be able to kick people with the Ranger because it's kind of frustrating that you don't get any moves outside of like shooting. The other skill is called Flashing Arrow. Fires an arrow charged with light that explodes on impact, stunning and blinding affected enemies. The new passives for the Ranger are Penetrating Arrow, which reduces the arrow consumption for Tempest Shot. Quick Cans reduces the time it takes to reload during combat.